Okay, it's been about a minute and no one else is sitting in the waiting room, so we'll go ahead and get started. Just to let you know, I am recording the session, so if that in any way impacts your participation, that's fine. Um, just wanted you to know. I spoke too soon. There are a couple people, rest of us joining them. Um, but to go ahead and get started, I want to thank you all for coming out this afternoon. We have a um, very well attended workshop. Hopefully, it will live up to expectation. Um, so, if you don't know who I am, I am Sean Lohner. I am the Assistant Director for Professional and Career Services here at the Graduate School, formerly the TA Program Coordinator. Um, Part of my responsibilities are planning and executing the TA orientation. So that includes hiring teaching mentors. So many of you I know have attended the teaching mentor info sessions. I'm also the head of the OTA program, so the Outstanding TA Award. I oversee that process. So some of you may be creating portfolios with that in mind as well. Um, and while I am not the head of FPP, I'm intimately connected to it. So there's also the certificate in university teaching. So um, all of these are things that you might use a teaching portfolio for. So what I want to do this afternoon is just walk through what a teaching portfolio is, how you might construct it, and then we will look at well, some pieces in more detail than perhaps we did in some info sessions. And then we will look at some examples. I'll have some teaching mentors joining me who will demo their portfolios and talk about their thoughts and processes when it comes to creating one. Um, a couple of things I want to bring your attention to first. Um, I have to make my screen slightly bigger so I can see the share button. So, um, not exactly sure if this shows up as full screen or not. Um, it's never quite clear, and I never have enough room to see everything. But on the graduate school website, there is a creating a teaching portfolio page. You can get to it by going to graduateschool.syr.edu/creating-teaching portfolio or teaching-portfolio, I should say. Um, Here you will find many of the same things we'll be talking about today, things you might include in your portfolio. What is, I think, of most importance are these resources. So talking about writing a teaching philosophy, which we'll talk about in more detail. This particular presentation or the PowerPoint for it, and a number of step-by-step guides for creating an online portfolio via a couple of platforms, WordPress, Wix, Google Sites. These are just a few. There are certainly others that you could use, but we've got some guides created by current and former teaching mentors who will help you with that. And there's also, of course, tutorials and YouTube videos for these platforms. We also have a couple of sample portfolios that you can look at, uh, mostly online, but there is a PDF one. As I said, we'll be looking at a couple of others later on. So if you get stuck or you're just starting out and you want to think about creating some online content, or you want to look at what other people have done, check out this page. You might find it helpful. And I will stop sharing and minimize it as much as I can so I can see. Um, and I will then share. Of course, it's on a different page or a different screen, so it's harder to see, but um, if I move it over here, does it work? No. Yes. Sorry. One day this will become easy. Let me admit a couple more people. So, what we're going to talk about today is creating a teaching portfolio. Um, as I've stated in info sessions before, um, the teaching portfolio is largely a record of your teaching experience. Depending on what level you're at, it could be your TA experience or it could be instructor of record course experience. Um, Ideally, you will have a portfolio and you will update that portfolio as you progress through your academic and professional careers. If you stay in academia, this is a great thing to have, um, particularly when it comes to third-year reviews, tenure applications, perhaps even a full professor application if you are so blessed. Um, Um, but for us in particular, you might use your teaching portfolio, as I said, for the teaching mentor application for the Outstanding TA Award, or for the Certificate in University Teaching for FPP. When it comes to actually going on the job market, your portfolio is a great thing to have. Online, you'll have a presence. If you have a PDF, you can um, pull sections out of it that you can send to hiring committees. So it's a good thing to have. Um, okay, so hopefully you can still see this. If there are any um, questions or concerns about what I'm presenting, um, or if you can't see anything uh, or hear me for whatever reason, break in, let me know. Um, but we'll continue. So, um, your teaching portfolio, like I said, is a record of your teaching experience. Um, it usually has certain pieces, but the way you construct your portfolio, um, is basically the way you tell your story. I often refer to a teaching portfolio as a narrative because you're deciding what to present, how to present it, um, and hopefully eliciting a certain reaction in the reader, depending on what you're using it for. Um, so at minimum, you're going to be talking about your teaching experience through a variety of different lenses. You're going to be reflecting upon those experiences and how they help to shape who you are as a teacher. Um, your portfolio, um, if you are using it for a specific reason, should state that reason so the reader understands what this document is and what it's supposed to do. Um, and then, as I said, as you progress, um, your teaching portfolio will grow, but you'll also be adding pieces to it like research, service, things like that, that eventually will create a record not only of your teaching, but the entirety of your career. So, um, the obvious question is where to begin. Um, Nowadays, it's much easier to think about this because most of us create documents for class or syllabi for courses online or in electronic format. Whether we're posting those on things like Blackboard or Canvas or any of those learning platforms, or simply having them as PDFs. Uh, Back in the day when the norm was creating a paper portfolio, a binder, um, it was often a pain to talk about your previous experience because in most cases you didn't have those artifacts. Um, so depending on the amount of experience you might have now or where you are in the process, it may be easier or harder to gather these materials together. Um, I will expand on what I mean by categories and examples. Um, when you're gathering this material, obviously it needs to be organized. And when I'm talking about examples or categories here, we're um, organizing things by class, or you're organizing things by what kind of document it is, what format it might be in, whichever way you find to be most helpful in organizing all of this material to create, like I said, that narrative whole. Um, so often, one of the easiest ways is simply, this is all the material I have for this particular class. Um, or this one iteration of a particular class, depending on your experience. Um, you can organize a portfolio not by course, but by theme. So this is all of the teaching materials I have produced. These are all of the student evaluations I've produced or received. And then you're organizing by that particular category rather than by the course. But it is truly up to you how you do it. Um, I guess I hazard to say that there is no wrong way to do it, but as long as it makes logical sense to you and perhaps to an external reader, then you are free to do your portfolio uh, in many ways however you want. Um, Particularly with previous material, uh, previous courses that you may have TA'd for or taught, things that you might not have a lot of materials for, um, or things that you are doing now. It's important to keep a record not only of um, what you have or what you've created, but also your thoughts about those experiences, about those materials. Um, so when you're organizing or when you're gathering all of this stuff, um, whether that be at the end of term or as with now, because you have a particular reason to create a portfolio, you do want to take some time to reflect on the materials you've created or used, reflect on the experiences you've had in the classroom, either bringing those materials to life or sort of your overall impressions of either how you did or how the course went. Um, when it comes to reading a portfolio, whether it's you know, someone like me who is looking at your portfolio because it's for a particular job position or for its a particular award, um, or if you're on the job market, people obviously want to see what you have done, and that is demonstrated often by your materials, but they also want to get to know you. They want to learn about who you are as an instructor, as someone who is um, imparting knowledge and overseeing classroom, or um, who's engaged in a collaborative process of bringing some kind of some course to life. Reflection statements, whether large or small within your portfolio, become incredibly important because they are the window into who you are. Um, that's how a reader gets to know you as an instructor. So when we talk about the teaching philosophy, that's one of the biggest things um, for, um, hold on, seems the link for the presentation. Okay. Um, well, I'll just then take this opportunity to drop um, a couple of documents into the chat. Sorry. Yes, it may be that when ITS switched over from answers to this cloud-based, that some of the documents got misplaced or misdirected. So um, yeah, I think the PDF of this presentation may not work from our website, but it is here in the chat, and again, I can send it to you if you've missed out on it. Um, so right. Reflection statements, like I said, incredibly important. We'll talk about them in a little bit more detail, particularly things like the teaching philosophy. Um, but you want to think about not only what you're gathering, what you have, what kind of artifacts you have of your teaching, but also your impressions, your thoughts about that, about those experiences. Again, as I said, your um, portfolio, if you're creating it for a particular reason, or to be used for a particular thing, um, you should make that clear. Especially if your portfolio might be serving many different roles or fulfilling many different requirements. It's not uncommon for people to um, be using their portfolio at the same time for the teaching mentor application, an OTA nomination, and to get their CUT, because in many cases, the points in one's program those experiences might all coalesce at the same time. So if you're using it for multiple reasons, then you should make sure that you have, um, can you and should you upload syllabi online? I will get to including specific teaching materials in a bit, but yeah. Um, so you want to make it clear what this is for. Um, whether that is a landing page on your website, or it's a particular document that you might have in a PDF portfolio, it should be clear. Answering the question, what is this, and why would someone want to read it, or what would they get out of it? Um, in many ways, that might look like a cover letter for a job position. Like, here's my application for this job. This is why I'm qualified for it. Um, or simply a personal statement as an introduction to who you are as an academic, as an instructor, as a graduate student. Um, why are you qualified for this position, and where do you see yourself? What are your goals? This doesn't have to be a monumental thing. It's simply the first window into who you are and into your portfolio. Um, so again, it's up to you how you want to do it. Um, but it's always, again, if you're applying for a position or something, it's always a good idea to make it clear to the reader what this is and what it's for. Um, just in case you don't know, and plenty of folks don't necessarily know what a CV is. Um, when you're including this kind of CV into your teaching portfolio, think again of it as sort of an expanded resume that includes all of your academic and professional information, such as courses taught, but also papers published or projects completed, presentations given. Um, the CV, unlike a sort of traditional resume that you would have for a non-academic job, the CV is meant to be long. It is an expansive document that grows as you produce, whether, as an instructor or as a researcher, or again, or anything that has to do with your um, professional career. It's also a place where you can talk about things that you are interested in and things that you could do. Whereas a resume is usually one side of one sheet that is very specific to uh, a single position. Um, the CV is usually not tailored to a particular job, um, whereas the resume often is. Um, so here's an opportunity again to sort of talk about the entirety of who you are and what you've done um, as a graduate student, um, in brief statements. Another thing that you might want to create that is separate from the CV or could be part of the CV is a summary of your teaching. This is basically a list of the courses that you've been involved with um, as a TA or as an instructor, um, often including such things as the course description. You might link a syllabus here. Um, and very briefly, your role and responsibilities in the course. This is not the place necessarily where you would break out all of the teaching materials or the student evaluations. This is simply a list of the courses you've been involved with. Um, Most importantly, for those who have a lot of teaching experience, later on in the portfolio, you're probably not going to be putting all of the material for all of the courses that you've taught. You may only choose a representative sample. Here you have a list of everything that you've been involved with. So the reader could then, is going to understand that you've been a part of all of this, but for the sake of space and time, you've only included certain representative samples of your teaching. Again, that might show a particular, might be around a particular theme or showing a particular narrative or growth. But it is important to have something that does document or outline all of the courses you've been involved with. That is often on the CV, but it's not a bad idea to have, especially like in a PDF where things can get lost amongst the pages, having something separate that simply outlines all of your TA courses and all of your responsibilities. Um, so all of that stuff, in the introduction is just basically you talking about you. The CV is what you've done in sort of a formal document. The summary is simply a list of things that you have been involved with. The teaching philosophy is the first time you get the opportunity um, to really talk about your teaching and how you go about doing it. Um, Now I think I dropped into the chat a couple of documents, and perhaps it bears putting them in again just to make sure that everyone has them. And again, if you have any trouble getting them out of the chat, let me know. Um, can you all see that I changed from the PowerPoint to a different document? Okay, cool. Um, it's never quite clear what I'm actually sharing. Um, Teaching philosophy um, is, again, it's a reflection on your teaching. Um, it's both the method by which you run the classroom or the methodology that you use. But beyond that, it's also not only what you're doing in the classroom, but why you do what you do in the classroom. Um, so, for example, why do you teach the way that you do? Um, what should students expect from you as a teacher? What kind of classroom do you create? What kind of atmosphere or environment? What methods do you rely on um, as compared to other methods? Um, what should the student learn in your class? How do you make sure that that learning is happening? Um, etc. with these questions. Um, when you're writing your teaching philosophy, um, there's a couple of restrictions you should keep in mind. This is never an exhaustive document. It is 1 to 2 pages max. Um, it is basically the things or the ideas that are most important to you at the moment that inform your teaching. This document will change and grow um, as you progress, if you progress as an instructor. Um, so don't worry about getting everything down. Don't worry about um, writing, you know, a lot, covering all of these. Don't try to answer all of these questions. Um, these are simply a guide to help you get started. Um, let me go back to, let me go to this one. So for example, um, you know, if if assessing and if making sure that students are learning is one of the things that's important to you as an instructor, again, all of these, of course, are important to all of us in some way, but again, thinking about what perhaps informs your teaching most, um, what are they supposed to get out of this course? What is it going to contribute to their knowledge? Um, how is it teaching about the discipline? Um, and then here are, ways that you might articulate this. Again, I don't want anyone to look at this and think this is the way you must do it. Um, but these documents can be helpful for you. I can't verify or guarantee that these links are still accurate. Um, I'm pretty sure that this one is because I just used it, but these documents themselves can be helpful. But really, it takes the teaching philosophy can be difficult if you haven't really sat down and thought about your teaching. Um, if that's something that you do more often, then it's probably just a matter of being able to trim down your thinking to fit the restrictions of that 1 to 2 page um, limit. But ask yourself, okay, what do I do in the class? What's the way I teach? And then why do I do that? Or what are the principles behind my teaching? What is important to me? It should be first person. It is your statement about your teaching. It should include examples. Um, so if you're talking about what you do in the classroom, why you do what you do in the classroom, you should have a corresponding example from the classroom. Um, a way of demonstrating to the reader how you bring that particular idea, theory, principle to life. So it might be helpful to answer a couple of the questions that are on that other document, or um, just simply think about, you know, your teaching on any particular given day. What does it look like? And then try to parse it out. Also, a great thing to do is to look at examples. Um, you don't want to look at examples and sort of be dictated by them. But reading other statements can be very helpful, especially if you are having trouble getting started. Um, so looking at the teaching philosophies that you'll find in some of the example portfolios that we have on our website, or the ones that we'll look at today, um, asking uh, folks who have already produced a teaching philosophy who might be in your department or in your discipline. If you feel comfortable, ask faculty members, ask your advisor, how did they put together a teaching philosophy or teaching statement, you know, and go from there. Like I said, it's a growing, living document, so um, don't get too hung up on it. Um, don't think that you have to spill every particular thing that regards your teaching. Um, just think about what is important to you, and how you bring that to the classroom. Um, so while the entirety of the portfolio is a record of your teaching experience, there usually is a section that is specifically talking about your teaching experience. So like I said, you might have a teaching summary or a list of the courses that you've been involved with their descriptions, your responsibilities. Um, again, if you have a lot of experience, um, you would want to have that documented on that initial summary. But when it comes to then in talking about or including materials and evaluations, you can do it for a few courses. Again, providing a representative sample. If you don't have a lot of experience, then of course you would want to include everything or every course that you've been involved with. It really is up to you how much you want to include. Um, again, often based on the amount of experience you have, but also what makes sense to you or what fits in with the your role in the classroom. One thing about um, talking about your experience, particularly for things like the teaching mentor position or the OTA award, things that where there is the possibility of your portfolio being compared to someone else's, um, or the reader having a certain expectation, um, and that expectation not being the reality of your position as a TA. You want to make sure that it's clear to the reader, um, what was your role in the classroom? When you become a full professor, or if you're instructor of record, well, everything is sort of, you know, every bit of the class is you. Um, but for TAs, that's often not the case. So you want to make it clear to the reader, what you did in the classroom, what was your role, what were your responsibilities, what were the expectations of you, um, so that again the reader doesn't have a false sense or a false expectation of what a TA ship should look like, as compared to the reality of your position. What you did in the classroom, what your role was, might also dictate how much you can include in the portfolio. Um, I would say at the minimum, um, because you are attached to a course, you should always include the syllabus for the course. Now, if you're doing an online portfolio, as was the question, if your portfolio is public, um, often syllabi are accessible um, from outside of the university, although that's not always the case if we're using a learning platform. Just use your best sense, use your best judgment as to what you want to make public and what you would prefer not to. Most of the platforms that you can use for an online portfolio uh, have security features. You can set up a password either for the entirety of the portfolio or for pieces of the portfolio, such as the syllabus or such as student evaluations, things that you don't necessarily want to be public. Um, but you do need to include something that will tell the reader what was the course and what was your role in it. So the syllabus, if you created it, that's great, and that should be reflected. If you didn't create it, then of course let the reader know that, but also let the reader know um, what parts of the syllabus you were involved with. Whether it was the assessments, the grading, if you got to, um, you know, cover a particular day on the syllabus and you did lecture material or something like that, um, make it clear what in the syllabus corresponded to your role in the classroom. Um, and that goes with other materials as well. If you had a hand in creating or implementing any kind of assessments, such as exams, assignments, uh, any of that, make that clear and perhaps include examples of that material. If you were largely in charge of grading, whether it was exams or papers, written work, um, let the reader know that. Include some of that material. Um, Especially if you were a grader who was responsible for giving students feedback, then you might want to include examples of your feedback. Um, you could include student work as long as it is de-identified. You make it completely anonymous, with, of course, the focus being on your feedback, your commentary. Um, but that's a great thing to include that demonstrates what you did in the classroom and also demonstrates how you um, enacted that particular role. Um, any other materials that you think are important or help tell your story, include them. Um, Again, that could be audio video material. If you had someone come and record your performance, um, observations, any of that kind of stuff. Again, if you guest lectured or you covered a particular section of the course, that include that stuff, your PowerPoints, your presentations, as long as you make sure it's clear what the material is and why it's being included. Um, Anything that helps tell the story. Um, and again, that can be dictated on your level of experience, the amount of courses that you've taught, um, the amount of iterations of a particular course you've taught. Um, if you've taught the same course over and over, if TAs in your department teach or are connected to a particular course and you semester after semester TA for that course, then you don't have to include every iteration of the course. You might include the first iteration and the last iteration, which ideally would show some kind of growth trajectory. Or if everything is equal, then only include one of them. This is the representative sample of that particular course. Um, there's no one size fits all for your portfolio. It really is dictated by your experience and your preferences. Um, you would also want to include student evaluations. Um, we'll get to peer and faculty, but they're usually less prevalent and they're easier to deal with. Um, Depending on your role in a particular course, you may have more or less student evaluative material. If you're the instructor of record, you probably have access to all of it, the raw data, the statistical breakdowns. You have lists of comments. You have all of that material um, that you can package in particular ways and present. Um, if your role in the classroom is not instructor, um, if you're running a recitation or if you are the assistant in the classroom, you're a grader, you're not going to have a lot of this material because let's face it, TAs are often they are often overlooked when it comes to the formal evaluations, the end course evaluations in particular. There may be one or two questions referring to you, um, or none at all. Um, include what you can. Um, if you have access to the raw data, include it. Um, but if you don't have access to this material, include whatever informal assessments you might have. If you have absolutely no student evaluations, if you have no access to them, you were not included in the formal evaluations, your role didn't, it wasn't one that would be commented on in that way, um, then write a self-evaluation of your performance in the classroom. Um, again, you want to demonstrate something. You want to demonstrate that someone is thinking about your performance, whether it's the students or it's you. So if you need to write a student evaluate or a self-evaluation, um, then include, yeah, this is what I was asked to do. This is what I did. This is how well I did it. These are some things that I might want to work on for next time. Um, these are the things that I learned from the experience and that I'm taking forward into the next course I teach, um, including that. Uh, as I said, if you have informal evaluations, if you do sort of daily or weekly um, assessments of your students' learning, you can include some of that material. If you receive emails from students telling you how great you are, you can include those, again, de-identified, but include that stuff as well. Anything that gives the reader some insight into how you were received. Um, if you have again, a lot of experience, you don't need to put in all of the evaluations. If you have a lot of evaluations, even for a particular class, if it was a big class, you might use simply the statistical breakdown that gives the reader some kind of way of looking at your performance. Um, you might include just a representative sample of comments, some that were glowing, some that were maybe not so glowing, that you can then talk about. Um, If there are strange discrepancies in your evaluations, if certain things are, if there's a one where every other answer or every other response is a five, you might want to address that. So you can also use contextual and reflective statements to talk about your evaluations. Particularly, the best thing to do with evaluations is talk about what you learned from them, how you use them, how they affect your future teaching. Again, that you're thinking about um, your teaching and trying to grow. If you had any other graduate students come and visit your class, TAs also connected with the course, or um, any other graduate students, former TAs for the course, friends of yours, um, who you want to, or who you had come and observe your class. Um, and if they wrote up anything, substantive, then you can include that as well. If your faculty members, either your advisor, an FPP liaison advisor, or perhaps the supervising faculty member for the course, if they came and sat in on your session and gave you some kind of constructive feedback, you could include that. Um, it's always, again, a good idea then to take that material and talk about it through some kind of reflection. Um, but any kind of evaluative material that you have, include. Um, so yeah, again, reflections. Um, the most interesting part of your portfolio to read, the most personal part of your portfolio to read, and the one that often tells the reader the um, most about the courses that you've been involved with, the teaching that you've done, and who you are. Providing context, providing explanation, um, again, helps you develop the story of your portfolio, of who you are as communicated through this document. Um, Depending on what you're using this for, especially when you start to go onto the job market, you will obviously want to be including other activities in the portfolio, not just your TAing or your teaching. Um, so the other things that might appear on your CV, like papers that you published or presentations, you might include a sample of your dissertation or thesis, whether it be the abstract or maybe a first chapter. You might include something like that. Conference presentations, or if you've done, sort of a poster board presentation, you might include a picture of that. Um, any kind of service that you may have done. Um, those things that when you become, or if you go up to be a tenured professor, service being one of the things that is looked at. How did you serve the community, whether that community be your department, the discipline, or something larger? What kind of service did you do? You might put in a record of your professional development. So any of the pedagogical activities that you've been involved with, FPP, you could put a record of your FPP participation. Um, any um, workshops that you've attended, you could create a list of those. Again, um, as you progress in your career, your portfolio should represent or should display the well-rounded nature of who you are as an academic. And then again, anything else that you think is important, anything else that helps um, talk about you and your teaching. Um, a little bit about format. Um, I don't want to I think I'm almost done here. In fact, I think I'm on the last one, but I want to get to the examples soon. But thinking about format, and organization. That is important. And it is often dependent on which particular type of portfolio you do. If you do a PDF, then in many ways that is mimicking a book, the old sort of paper binder. So you would want the sections sort of clearly demarcated, perhaps using a table of contents or some kind of bookmarking function that you would find on a PDF so that someone can jump to a particular section or can find easily where they need to go in order to find what they're looking for. Um, Anything that makes it easier for the reader to get around. Um, but you want to use, you want to make it make sense. So it's broken down in some way that makes logical sense and helps the reader get through it. Um, if you're creating a website, as you'll see, their websites have a little bit more plasticity to them. You can do a little bit more sort of a circular narrative flow by linking things, by having one page jump to another page or one keyword jump to a particular page and then back. Um, but again, you want to make sure that it's easy to get around and that it makes sense. Um, Also with, when you're doing a PDF, it's usually just plain. It looks like a book. You can include pictures, of course, but oftentimes you probably wouldn't. But if you are doing a website, you have the freedom to include more visual material, whether it be recorded or pictures. Um, you want to break up the monotony sometimes by including some of these visuals. So there is some element of creativity here. So you can put your stamp on your portfolio. Um, so that was a very long-winded way of getting to the point where we can actually look at some portfolios. So I've got some teaching mentors here um, who I will make sure, let me double check that I can give you the power to share so that you can show everyone your portfolio. That should work. So Caitlin, you are in my upper left corner. So you're the first block on my screen. Why don't you go ahead and show your portfolio, talk about your process. If anyone has any questions about why you did particular things that you did, and then we'll move on to our other TMs. And then by the end, if folks have questions for individuals or just generally, we should have a little bit of time to discuss things. So I will shut up now.
Okay, thanks, Sean. So I'm gonna see if I can share my screen. Um, okay, can everyone hear me and see the screen? Yes, okay. So this is my teaching portfolio. I did a Google Sites website, which is easy, it's free. I used just my Syracuse email to do it. And you can go, if you don't know how to get to it, you can go on to these little dots up here and then basically go to sites and then create site. And then that's how you get to the site part. But basically on the teaching portfolio, when you have the link, it goes right to my homepage with kind of my name, a little welcome page that kind of just says what this site actually is and talks a little bit about who I am, and then obviously just a picture. And then on the top here, I have a little menu that makes it easier to just navigate everything. So I started with the cover letter. This was for the teaching mentor application. So I have the cover letter for that included in the site. But obviously, if you use this for other things, you can just hide that from the navigation or take it off completely, whatever you want to do. And then I have my CV here, which basically is kind of tailored to this specific job. So it's not like everything I've ever done in my life, which I definitely recommend you don't put like I was a barista in 2013 because I don't think that really matters for this particular thing. So kind of just put the things that are relevant to what you're applying to. I think that's a good tip just in general. But so that's the CV part, and then I kind of have a whole menu over here that has teaching. You could put teaching experience, whatever. But within here, I kind of have a different tab for all of the things that Sean was mentioning early on. So I have the teaching philosophy page, and all of this, all of these pages that you see here, they're actually documents from Google Drive. So if you put everything into Google Drive, it makes it a lot easier to put it onto the site in a way that basically I didn't want people to have to click on things and open new tabs, because personally that annoys me when I go on websites. So I like that everything you can just scroll and see everything. You don't necessarily, you can if you want to, and that opens up a whole different tab, but you don't need to. You can see it directly from the page, which I kind of like. And if you're gonna do the Google Drive route, just make sure when your documents in Google Drive. So I have a whole folder here that has everything that's on the portfolio, and just make sure you can see I have the little shared people right here. When it's shared, just make sure you say anyone with the link can view it, and make sure you share it that way, because if you don't, when you go onto the teaching portfolio, it's just going to be a blank screen and say that they can't see it. So make sure that you share it. Um, and the teaching portfolio, I think, is one of the most important parts of the teaching philosophy is one of the most important parts, because that's where you can kind of actually talk about yourself and kind of share who you are and everything. Um, and so I think that's a very important part. Then here I just have my uh, this was also in Spanish at one point, so I need to make sure I edit that back to say something in English. But this is kind of all the syllabi for my classes here. If I were going to redo this, I'd probably put another little description below the class and kind of just explain what it was. And these are really long documents, so you do have to click on this to be able to see the whole thing. But I just have an example from each of the classes that I taught at this time. Um, and then here I have example lesson plans. So these are just Google Slides documents that were linked here. And then I have a description here that kind of just talks about what was covered in the class and everything. And I'm an instructor of record, so if you're a TA that's just teaching a recitation or something, it might not look like this, but this was because I'm an instructor of record and we do everything, create all the materials, so that's why mine looks like this. And I just have an example lesson from each of the classes I've taught and a little blurb about what was covered in the class. Um, and then later, evaluation materials. These are things that I had to create for the class. So I have quizzes, an exam, and just in these little blurbs, I just kind of talked about my choices and why I did what I did. Um, and just, yeah, different kinds of evaluations. And then feedback. Here I have my course evaluations linked, and you can just scroll through these. And then I also have some quotes from, one is from a student email that I got, and then one is from another instructor down here. So you can include those if you want as well, as Sean mentioned earlier. And then I have my teaching reflections. So the way that I did it, I just saw an example of someone else who had done it like this. And I think it worked out pretty well, is I kind of just put the title of the class, what year it was in when I taught it, and kind of a little, it doesn't have to be a lot, just a little description of what I thought about the class and how it went. And I kind of just organized it so that it all looks the same. It doesn't have any grammar mistakes and everything. Um, and again, this is all in Google Drive documents. And then I also have an example video from a class that I taught, just a recording of a class. And this was from Kaltura. So I recorded it on Zoom in the class, and then it went on to Kaltura, and then I was able to download it from Kaltura onto Google Drive and then linked it here. And then just another little blurb about what it is. Because I think all the artifacts that you put on here, it's important to actually explain what they are instead of just putting it there, because it might be really obvious to you what it is, but someone looking at the site who has no you know, idea about your discipline or anything, it might not be obvious to them what it is. So make sure you explain everything that you're putting on there with just a little tiny description. Um, and I think that's all I want to say. If anyone wants to ask me questions, you definitely can. I'm going to stop the share. Um, yes, Sean, is there anything else you'd like me to add?
No, I mean, if there's anything that you can think of, as to why you made the choices that you made for your portfolio, as compared to doing it a different way, but I mean, that can also come out after everyone's shared, so either way.
Yeah, I think I decided to do the website just because I'm going to be applying to jobs that also require the teaching portfolio. And I think it's a really accessible way for you to share yourself. So I recommend the website route. I really like doing it that way. And I've been able to use it for other things. And then also I think I definitely would recommend. I think the biggest thing about my portfolio that I've heard from people who've looked at it and also from me creating it is that it's like super intuitive as to how you get around it. And I think that's a major, major thing that will make you stand out against other people just because no one likes to be annoyed when they're trying to look through things. So if you can make sure that everything is very obvious and everything goes where it should, um, then I think that's one of the most the I don't know, one of the most important things you can do. Um, oh, okay. Can you please repeat what program for your website did you use and how much does it cost? So I used Google Sites. So Google Sites is completely free. It's part of the Google ecosystem, I guess you could say. And it does not cost anything. It's completely free website and anyone can make a website on there. And my website personally, I put it on you can only see it if you have the link. So if someone looks up Caitlin Miller teaching port, it won't come up. But you can also put it just public to everyone. But I'll put it in the chat, I guess, Google Sites. And then I'm gonna put my teaching portfolio in the chat just in case anyone wants to look at it, I guess. But I'll do that after. But yeah, so that's basically my choices and stuff that I made.
Hey, great, thanks. Um, I can't see where everyone is, so who would like to go next?
I can go. I can do it. Do you guys hear me? Okay. So I created this portfolio for teaching mentorship application, and I did the website because I feel like you can be creative. It's like easy and it's so much fun. And to be honest, you should get familiar with the technology and like how to create websites, stuff like that. So that's why I highly recommend creating a website. I agree with everything that Caitlin said. Like, you can use this website for like job applications and the other stuff. So that's why I chose creating the website. And the first thing that I did probably was updating my CV. First of all, just it takes time. Just write the activities that you involved and everything. Just you could start with updating your CV, I would say, I guess. So here, when this is like table of content page, you see me here, and you see like different tabs. Let's say teaching and research, and this is a little bit about me. Here is my experiences. For example, graduate teaching assistant at Syracuse University, instructor for one sections of like Science 104, Science 105 since 2022. And I also have like K-12 teaching experience. And I just made sure to put, main experiences that I have here. And I also have like a section for publication, which is not necessary, obviously, but I have publications and why not sharing it? So that's why I put my publications here. And here is the main part for like teaching portfolio. So when I click the teaching portfolio part, I actually have to like click these materials. So I have my CV, my materials and evaluations, teaching philosophy, personal statement, and reflective statements here. So let's start with the CV. So like Caitlin, I use Google Drive for like everything because I like keeping my stuff somewhere that I can reach like easily in like every computer. I do not trust my computer, my laptop at all. So that's why I always keep my stuff online. So here, by the way, this website is called Weebly and it is free. I forgot to say it. So you can basically go to like weebly.com and create a website. It's free. It's like Google Sites. Since I was using Google Drive for my documents, I just added my links here. So if you click here, it's gonna direct you to my CV, which is on Google Drive. I have a note saying that make sure to say, if you are using a Google Drive for your documents, make sure that they are like available for everyone to see, as Caitlin also mentioned, because sometimes we forget to make that like available for everyone and it might create a problem. So if you are using a Google Drive for your documents, instead of just embedding it like here as a, you know, image or something, just make sure that it's available for everyone. For materials and evaluations, I had like links here, materials I created, students evaluations, like let's click that. It goes to my drive and you can basically see like some screenshots. I'm assuming these are from directly the Syracuse University feedback system because I am able to actually, I am able to see all of my like students and their comments and everything. Do you guys see my screen right now? So this is, for example, directly from Syracuse University feedback system, my lovely students and their comments. I love keeping my like evaluation in a separate folder because I feel like I need them for my personal development and growth. So I always keep my students' evaluations in a separate folder and I just put the link here so that you can easily reach it. And for the personal statement, it's kind of similar to Caitlin's. I just write it like here. Instead of writing like a document, I just write it here. For the reflective statements, again, I try to mention especially the classes that I'm teaching right now at Syracuse University rather than my K-12 teacher experience, because I feel like this is the most important part for my life and for my future right now. So I didn't mention about everything. And here when you click more, I have some information like contact, awards, instructional design, things like that. But I think that's mainly everything.
Okay, thanks.
You are welcome. My computer is gonna die, I thought. Do you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Zero trust. I have zero trust for this. Okay, like if you have any question, I can just put my email address here so that you can reach me out. I can also put the link for the teaching portfolio. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, we got one more. So
Yay, I'm the one remaining. Hi, everyone. So my name is Callistus. I was a teaching mentor last year. It was my first time. It was a great experience. So I'm gonna share my screen so you can see the portfolio that I created for the application. Okay, so that's my portfolio. And the reason I created this portfolio is because I was doing a master's program at the time, and one of the requirements was that we create a teaching portfolio before we graduate with the master's. So I thought, why not start doing a portfolio when applying for teaching mentor? Then I'll just keep updating it as I go for my master's. So there are things here which were not part of this portfolio when I was doing my application, so don't feel scared. Some of the things I just added when I was submitting it for my master's. I don't want to really go too much over the same things that Gizem and Caitlin have talked about. But as you see, as Sean said, try to make your portfolio more visual so that it's, if you're doing the online one, so that it's appealing to whoever is reading it. So I have here my homepage, and this is just like a short story about me. And from there, I have my CV. One thing I noticed with, I think Caitlin and Gizem, is that they embedded a Google Drive link for their CV. I think Caitlin embedded the CV as a document from Google Drive. So for me, I just, my CV was a Word document, so I copied everything and pasted on this website. And that helps me because whenever I want to edit, whenever I complete another step in life and I want to add on the website, I can just edit directly here. I don't have to edit a document and then come and upload it again. So as you can see, when I go to my education, I recently completed my master's right here, and I just came and updated on the website, and I didn't have to go edit the CV and come upload it again. So you might think of doing that. We also have the academics tab that, okay, so this wasn't part of the application, sorry. This was for my master's because I had to write the courses I've taken. But I have the teaching philosophy. For the teaching philosophy, I also just copied everything I had written and pasted on the website. It's a lot to read. So I also attached here a PDF version, and when you click the PDF version, it goes to Google Drive. So whoever is reading can also download the PDF version and look at it. And I have my teaching experiences. So I put here the courses I've been teaching, the courses I've been TAing for since I came to SU. Then the teaching materials. So here I have the syllabus that I've used in my class, the quizzes and assignments that students have used, and a classroom video that was recorded when I was teaching. I just embedded it here. So if you click to watch, again, it takes you to Google Drive and you can watch the video. And then, so the research work tab was not part of the application. So just skip that. And social media was not part of the application. Now, one thing I realized after sharing this portfolio with Sean, I think he came back to me and said, we tried to click the link, but it's not giving people permission to view. So when he told me that, I had to just have a backup plan. And my backup plan was a Google Drive folder. So what you see here is the folder I had as my backup plan. This folder is called TA Mentor Application. It's a folder in Google Drive, so this was very simple to do. And in this folder, I just uploaded my CV, the application form. I have some folders here for the trainings I had completed that I felt were relevant for this application. The quizzes and assignments for classroom, my teaching philosophy, a video of me teaching, the syllabus I created for my students, the course feedback I received from students like Gizem had, and my reflection on teaching. So eventually I ended up sharing this Google Drive folder for my application, and this is what was used. So this got me the job. But with time, now I know how to share the link from my online portfolio. And my portfolio, I also used Google Sites, just like Caitlin. So if you have any question about navigating that, just I'm also gonna put my link in the chat so you can click on the link and check out the portfolio. Yep, that's it.
Excellent, thanks. So, as I said, there are a couple of other examples on our website, including one that is a PDF version. But as I said, a PDF version, you know what it looks like. It looks like a book. You can still embed things. You can still have it linked to external things. So it is a little bit more interactive than a paper binder might be. Um, but you'll want to make sure that you actually, Callistus, can you, I think you're still sharing. Okay, cool. Now I can see all the blank screens and names. Um, one of the things with a PDF version is if you have the documents all in that format, um, it's easy enough to sort of slide them together. Um, but you want to think about a couple of things. What is the preferred version of a portfolio in your discipline, if there is one? Um, you might be surprised that some disciplines still expect a physical artifact, but I would think most are a little bit more tech savvy than that. But if creating a PDF is what is the norm, then perhaps that's the way you would like to go or should go. Um, but I think for your own personal development, doing the online portfolio is probably a better idea, at least in the long run. It gives you a presence out in the world, even if you only make parts of it available. It's much easier to share. Not like attaching a PDF to an email isn't easy, but you give someone a link or you create a QR code and they can bring it up on a device, they can bring it up on their computer, and they have instant access to who you are. And it does give you, as you've seen, it gives you freedom to arrange things in different ways, to include things, to either embed things or have them link out to other things. So it is more of an outlet for your creativity, and it gives you at least it gives you more freedom in the way that you construct your portfolio. Your PDF is pretty much going to be linear. You're going to have section after section after section. Here with an online portfolio, you can have things link back to each other. You can get creative in that sense. But it is truly up to you, however you want to do it. We're at 4:21. We've got about 9 minutes left. Does anyone have any questions they would like to ask? Anything you would like us to discuss? Yes, I have a question. I have a hand.
Yes. Hi, Sean. Thank
Hi.
you so much for the great presentation. This is very helpful. And thank you all for sharing your experience. I just wanted to ask a quick question. We talked about the student aspect of it, how we can share our teaching, feedback without giving any names. But I had like an experience where I wasn't the instructor of record, but I assisted the professor in giving some classes, only a
Mm-hmm.
handful of those. And I was wondering, do I need their permission to share that material because it is structured by them, not by me? I was just sharing their information.
For our purposes, no.
Okay.
I mean, it's never a terrible idea to reach out and ask for permission. But at least for the things that you might use it here at SU, outside of the job market, that shouldn't be necessary, especially since you had a hand, maybe not in creating it, but you certainly had a hand in implementing certain things or bringing some of that stuff to life. So while you can't claim ownership on it, you at least, you used it. And
Yeah.
it is important for you, in telling that part of the story. So, no, you shouldn't. You should include it. You might make it clear what you created and what you used, but you shouldn't need to get any permission from a faculty member about that.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good. Thank you so much for your answer.
Hmm. I mean, and just to piggyback on that idea, um, things that are in Blackboard or Canvas, obviously you're not linking to those learning platforms because those are protected. But copying and pasting things from those or downloading stuff and then moving it into your portfolio, as necessary or as appropriate, shouldn't be an issue. And many syllabi are publicly available, um, either through professional conference or professional organizations or on university websites. Um, Even in the course catalog, perhaps there might be some descriptions or might be some syllabi depending on the university. So that stuff's out there. So um, I wouldn't feel like you couldn't use it. Um, so
Okay.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Yep.
Maybe instead of like making it available for everyone, she can just share with you specifically.
Yes, yes.
Oh, you have the link, you cannot see it if you are not one of the persons, like, you actually directly shared. So that can be a way too.
Yeah. I mean, with your portfolio, generally speaking, unless you are using it, um, unless you want everyone, publicly to see it, most of the time you're using it for a specific reason. And then you might do it by invitation, you might do it by anyone who has the link, or you might add passwords to particular sections of it. Um, all of those are absolutely fine, even for our applications. Um, Again, as long as you let us in to see it. But there are ways of also locking some of that stuff down so it's not publicly available.
Yeah, I think, for the sake of this purpose, I'm gonna follow like Caitlin's footstep and probably just gonna close the whole thing, everyone but you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Checking the chat, checking for hands. Um, does anyone else have any questions? Caitlin?
Yeah, sorry, my virtual hand is not working, so I'm using my real hand. But I wanted to add quickly too, if you do decide to put a recording of yourself teaching in your portfolio or just like in life in general, you definitely have to, even though your students aren't minors, you still have to let them know that you're recording the class. And obviously say if, like in my video, you can see some of the students in the front row. But if any of them had a problem with it, you can just zoom in and just like show the board so that none of the students are in it. But definitely if you're gonna record a class, it's just good practice to say, hey, I'm recording this class for my professional reasons or whatever. None of you will be in the video, but just to let you know, whatever. So that's just like an aside, but I forgot to mention that.
Mhm. Um, there's a couple of things in the chat. I probably will not post this video for the session, but if you would like access to it, let me know if that is indeed the recording that is being mentioned here. Just email me and I can give you the link, but I'm not sure that I will post this far and wide. It does not count as an FPP session. Um, uh, I would have to have Glenn's input on that, and no, this one doesn't count, at least for the sequence. Whether your department might count it or not, that's up to them, but not officially, no. Okay, was there an attendance check-in? Attendance wise, if you just put your name in the chat, so that I save the chat, so I have a record of attendance, so that is good enough, but we weren't asking for RSVP, so attendance isn't, you don't necessarily need to let me know that you were here. As long as you got something out of it, that's good enough.
There are
Okay.
some thank yous, meaning goodbye.
Yeah. So I want to thank everyone for coming. If you do have any questions in the intervening days, before some of these applications are due, or just in general, please let me know. I'd be happy to work with you on your portfolio. Otherwise, have a good rest of your Friday. Have a good evening, and take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Sean, I have a quick question if you can stay here.
Yep.
I'm gonna wait till people leave, but I just didn't want you to exit out.
Then I will stop recording.